I'm Mike McDermott from FreshBooks, and I'm here in Miami at the Future of Web Apps. And Blaine from Twitter has been good enough to take a moment and speak with us. So thanks for being here, Blaine.
No problem.
So what is it you do at Twitter?
So I'm the lead architect, so I try and make sure that the server doesn't go down. You know, Twitter's essentially a real-time messaging service. So it's like IM, but to 10,000 of your closest friends every time. So it's got its challenges.
My understanding is you guys have had a couple sort of real-world events, like maybe something like the fires in San Diego or something like that, where you've seen real upticks in use and sort of load on your architecture. Can you talk to us about some of those things?
The biggest spike was definitely Macworld. That was gigantic. It's kind of a tricky situation because basically three or four of the biggest Mac sites that morning had badges on their sites, so we were handling all of their traffic and all of our traffic, and it was a big traffic day in general. So we saw, the spike look on the graph looked like this vertical bar, and it kind of stopped when all of our web servers fell over. And so we have no idea how far it would have gone. It's impossible to tell.
Did you know what you were getting yourself into from it's probably a bit of an emotional, mental roller coaster?
When we started on Twitter, we were already kind of there. We were really interested in it becoming quite big. It's a very different service though. And so a lot of the trade-offs that you make, with traditional web services, you either have very user-focused data, so this is my data and I'm looking at it and I'm not sharing it with other people, or you have data that's totally open and you don't have to worry about privacy, and you can cache it for a long time. And Twitter's like this from an architectural standpoint, this horrific mix of private and public data with very rapid updates. And that's been quite a challenge.
How are you organizing? What kind of skill sets do you really need to help you take on a scaling issue, of this significance?
One of the things that we've been looking for is messaging experience. I gave a workshop here on Jabber, and messaging is really interesting for us because it allows us to send out a lot of messages without having to store. It's the persistence that really kills us. So, so as much as possible, Twitterific updates once a minute, and that's the fastest that we'd let any API clients update. And so if we can turn that into a message that we send out in real time, that makes it easier for us, and we can give Twitterific real-time updates, or any API application real-time updates. But it's not a skill set that a lot of web developers have. Messaging is fairly new in the web world, so I think that's with Erlang and a lot of the actor-based languages, it's becoming more important, and a lot more people are picking up on it.
So just in terms of brute force, how big's the team working on this now?
So currently we're 5 people full time.
That's it?
That's it. So and until very recently we were just 4 people.
You're chief architect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we keep it fairly flat. People take responsibility for different things. One person kind of focuses on bugs, and other people will focus on the front end or the back end, and so on. And so I try and focus on the back end and not step on anyone's toes with the Java.
This is the whole product team, design and everything, or is it just developers?
So the company itself is 15 people or 16. So. So there's I think 4 product people and then some support people and so on.
All right, so how did you get into software in the first place?
It's a good question. I think I've been obsessed for as long as I can remember. So I got a computer when I was 8, and basically haven't stopped working on it since.
What city were you living in then?
I was living in Sparwood, British Columbia then, which is
a nice Canadian.
Yeah.
You gotta get the little plug in there.
Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
What drew you down to the Valley?
I had a friend who was working for Odeo, and they were looking for people, and so he pinged me. The Valley pays better than Vancouver, that's for sure. So it's and there's a lot of reasons to move down. There's a lot of interesting things going on. You're in San Francisco and hanging out with all sorts of awesome people that are doing amazing things on the web all the time, and it's a pretty inspiring environment.
So I mean, architecture takes a certain kind of mindset. Like, how did you, what is it you think that makes you good at it, and what are your strengths?
I think for architecture you need to be able to really see the abstract system, but be able to know what sorts of minor things are going to have an impact on the overall architecture. So you need to be able to remove yourself enough from the implementation details and that sort of thing, but know about those implementation details and what's going to, if you build it this way, that one small detail is going to make the whole thing slow, or just not work. And so you have to be aware of those things. But when you're designing this whole system, you have to build systems that work together but aren't too tightly coupled. And so it's that balancing act.
If somebody was like thought they wanted to be an architect or kind of started to see some strengths along those lines, what would be the first, like, what advice would you give them, or what would you encourage them to go read or do?
Sure. I think I would I think play with as much stuff as you possibly can. The broader a view that you have of all of the different types of tools and approaches that are used on building websites and doing things on the internet, the more things you're going to have to draw from when you're actually going out and building these things, and that can be really valuable.
Cool. And so if I were to ask you what is the future of web apps, you would say?
I would say messaging. I would say real-time exchange of data. I think we're moving into this state where people are using the web for communication more and more, and they're using it in much richer ways to share things with people that they care about and about things that they care about. One of my favorite descriptions of Twitter is this term ambient intimacy. And it's this idea that you can do expressive communication in a way that's not forced or immediate. And it plays off this idea that a lot of Second Life and Neil Stephenson books and these sorts of things, you're living in an alternate world, right? You're actually in the alternate world. And that's us visiting the internet. I don't think that's going to happen. So I see the internet permeating our lives more and more, but in helpful, kind of interesting ways, and being less seamless. I think Apple's current ads for the iPhone are like the internet in your pocket. I think that's it's maybe not very creative, but I think that the reality is it's just going to get more so, and we'll be able to get information much more seamlessly, possibly than we could possibly imagine right now. Like,
cool. Blaine, I just want to say thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Back to you, Bob. Cool. All right.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, that was cool. Are you going to South by Southwest too? You're going to be there?
Yeah.
All right,
I'll be
cool.
there.
Hey, are you on the panel?